questioned how normal the bad things that happen in the world are to us. Like, it's been years of the war in Ukraine, or more recently in Palestine, and we see people dying, burning alive, completely hopeless, scared to death, suffering. But that's just normal to us now. That's a reality we live in.
So, The Illusion of Functionality is an album that was created in very, very simple terms to invite people to do a reflection. I guess most of us, when we're young, we are questioning the world as we grow up, and we question if the government is right, we question if the education system is right, and at some point, sometimes we just make our peace with it. And sometimes I find we should maybe question some things again, right? I'm not saying we should make a rebellion or anything, but like, I mean, it should be something that we don't just let it be. We should question why we're doing the things we're doing. We should question if it's the right way of approaching some situations. And this album is essentially that. It's an invitation to a reflection of what we consider normal. The Illusion of Functionality has a lot of artistic merit. And perhaps it's wrong that I say that, though. Like, quite honestly, I think it's almost unfair for me to say that. But there is a lot that I would like to rescue about it. Um, it's a very, very deeply thought album. From the cover to the music to the lyrics, everything that happens within the album is truly intended as such. If you pay attention to the cover, for instance, the cover is, at a first glance, simply just a guy playing the piano in front of a window in some sort of hall or quelque chose. But the thing is, if you really pay attention to it, nothing in the cover makes sense. Absolutely nothing in the cover makes sense. The face of the guy doesn't make sense. The hands of the guy doesn't make sense. The keys don't make sense. The floor tiles don't make sense. Nothing in the cover makes sense. But it is an illusion, right? It is essentially making you think that it is indeed a guy playing the piano. And is exactly what this album is about. The album tries to say, well, yeah, society is functional, but it's functional because it's an illusion, because we're not questioning it. We're not really observing carefully if it is true or not. We're just accepting it for what we think it is. So, I'm going to share a relatively unpopular opinion here, but if you think about it, a lot of us musicians really are so focused on the lyrics, and we want the lyrics to say everything that has to do with the music, to the point where it's almost more important to have good lyrics than good music. But see, at that point, it almost feels to me, maybe we're not really musicians. Maybe we're more like a poet that is using musical resources to embellish their poetry. So this album is kind of thought the other way around. Let's make the music work for what we're trying to say. Let's make the chords, if I'm talking about something sad, the chord has to be sad. If I'm talking about something desperate, the chord needs to feel desperate. The music has to feel desperate. If I'm talking about a stressful situation, there has to be a feeling of stress in the music. The first song of the album is really a very much simple song. It's like just an intro song of the whole album. The idea is to set the mood actually for people to be in a more reflective, relaxed state. It has a very dark, almost atmosphere to it, and is essentially that though. It's about inviting people to do that reflection. There is a description with the voice, and that is the idea with the first song itself, to set the mood for the album.
Ghosts of yesteryear.
So, Inner Peace is a song about social media. The beginning of the song is very creatively done with a friend of mine. I actually explained to her the concept of what I wanted in the song, and she very gracefully ended up coming up with the voice on her own. And it was a really cool thing when she ended up showing me the song. I was really, really happy to hear that she captured exactly what I wanted her to do. Social media, for me, is a little bit like too noisy. There's not a lot of clarity into whether this is true, whether this is real or whatever, right? Like everything can be filtered, everything can be edited, everything can be quote unquote fake. And a lot of these established rules that we have from social media are embedded in the messages and in the contents of creators nowadays. And I find it's very difficult to move away from that though. So like her voice in the song at the beginning, if you truly pay attention, it's very much a noise, and then the song comes along. The voice, sorry, comes along. So like this noise and this voice is like representing that to me. Like there's so much noise, but the things that are actually clear, like the voice, for example, are very inviting. It's almost like it's really positive to be part of the social media, to be part of this community online. But at the end of the day, social media has taken a lot of my mental peace. And that's why this song was written, because I wanted to maybe invite other people to question if they are not being stolen their inner peace. You know, if like social media is not taking away from their own inner peace as an individual. And that's what the song is about. It's okay. It's a relatively interesting song for me because it's one of the longest songs I've ever done, but it's very much a song that is a little sarcastic. It's got like the first part of the song really makes you feel okay, and is essentially composed to make whoever is listening to that song to feel okay. And it's one of those things that personally has a good impact throughout the beginning of the song and just up until the song has the voice coming in. When the voice comes in, the music changes, the mood changes, the rhythm changes. It's a very drastic and dark change from where it was coming. But yeah, some of the characteristic of this next part when the song does enter is that it is about protesting how society has been, especially with the education system. Something that has triggered me a lot lately is the fact that, in my very humble opinion, young generations have been receiving a different kind of education from their parents nowadays. And it almost feels a little upsetting that they are so disrespectful and they're so mean sometimes, the younger folk. And that's essentially what the song is about. It's a little bit like question the education we're giving to the kids nowadays. And yeah, this is essentially what the song is about. The Illusion of Functionality, the title track, is perhaps the fakest song of the whole album. It's a song that it's done with loops throughout the whole song. If you closely pay attention to the song, everything that you hear within 4 bars is repeated. And you can simply perform the song by activating and deactivating loops throughout the song. But that is part of it on purpose, because part of what I wanted for this specific song to be is to be reflective of how almost mechanical, how repetitive we tend to be as a society. The only things that are not a loop in the song is, as you can imagine, of course, the voice and the solos throughout the song. Life tends to be very repetitive. It's almost like it's what's keeping us feeling anxious, it's what's keeping us feeling down or depressed or whatever. And maybe that's a way that society is doing it for us. And that's why I also wanted to make this song, because sometimes it feels it's our societal ways that have this impact on us. And this is what the song is about. It's about trying to be the only real thing in a world of repetitiveness, in a world of simple loops, I guess. So this song is... So I've heard a lot of people that have told me that they have never experienced an anxiety attack. And it's interesting though, because for the people that get those, it's almost like, how have you never felt this way, you know? And this song is trying to generate two things. It's trying to be a tool for people that have never felt that way to be able to, at the very least, get the sensation of how that feels. And for the people that have actually felt it, is to try and reflect how we have felt in that particular aspect. The positioning of the song is put in the 5th place because it's how you feel after you're realizing that nothing gets better, that nothing is improving, that nothing is changing. And is the natural response to that, though, is a natural response to feel anxious, to feel depressed, to feel out of place, out of balance. And this is what the song is about. It's got virtually 4 elements in the whole song. It's just 1 synth, 1 bass, a drum pattern, and the piano. The first 3 elements represent the stressful situation that society is putting you through. And if you listen to the song, it starts off with these 3 elements in the song. It generates a pretty heavy, pretty stressful mood right from the get-go of the song. But then the piano, though, represents me, right? Represents how I felt when I've been dealt with these particular situations. I think this song really stemmed from the fact that one day I was just so fed up with work, and I came home and I had a bunch of things going wrong here at home as well. And then I realized that just everything was very stressful. Everything was very complicated in my life, and I just couldn't find a moment of peace. And if you listen to the piano itself, that is essentially what it feels like. You know, at the beginning, the piano is trying to harmonically coexist with all this stress in the background, right? It's all this horrible noise, and the piano is just trying to be there existing. But at some point, the piano, quote unquote, gets tired. It's not possible for the piano to keep being the piano anymore. And then at some point, and same as in our lives, right? The stress ends. At some point, all the bad things that are attacking you in your life, they just stop. But you're not okay anymore. You're not yourself anymore. And that's how the piano ends as well. It can't resolve. It just keeps trying and trying desperately to resolve, but it just can't do it. Um, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why this song is relatively powerful to me, because it really felt like it reflected my life back then quite a bit. And yeah, it does end up resolving at the end, but the resolution is so miserable. And I feel like that's exactly how I felt back then. That's why this song is added into the album, because genuinely, if you think about it, it's difficult to make your peace with how wrong some things are. Hymn to Freedom, it's perhaps is the most significant song of the album to me. I had a bunch of friends of mine helping me out with this song, and I asked them two questions. Um, what is freedom to you? And do you perceive yourself as free? And, I've questioned this to myself. I've asked myself this question many times, and I was wondering, like, what does other people think about it? What do other people think about their own freedom in society, in the world, in life? And to my surprise, actually, I received really candid responses. So, like, this song is um, it's established in a way that you can hear the responses on the sides of when you're listening to it with headphones or in just any stereo system. You can hear the voices pan to the extremes, and you can essentially hear the responses of all the people that were sharing their views. And it's a hymn because if you ever had the opportunity to go to a church or to a Christian temple or any other temple where there's chants of sorts, sometimes when people sing a hymn together, it makes you feel not alone. It makes you feel like you are part of something bigger, part of something that is a whole and not just you by yourself anymore. And I wanted this song to particularly reflect that, because sometimes we forget that, okay, maybe society is in a way making us feel more separated, is making us feel more isolated, if you will, or whatever. But our friends, our family, the people that matter are there. And this is kind of what the song is about. It's about, okay, we're all sharing these particular views about our freedom, about how maybe I don't feel very free, maybe I don't feel great about what my choices can be in life because I don't have a lot of control over them. But it's not just me. It's a bunch of us doing this, feeling this together. I felt like it was just the right way of finishing the album because, okay, it's important to recognize all the bad things, right? Like it's important to know and to question if we're actually doing the right thing as a society. It's important to acknowledge that we may be wrong in how we're approaching some of the laws, some of the rights that we have, some of the liberties that we have. It's okay to acknowledge all the negative things. It's okay to acknowledge all the bad things, but you cannot just live in negativity. You have to be able to rely on others and rely on your community, rely on your friends to be able to move on and to move forward with whatever your goals and just about anything that you want to do. And this is what the song is about. It's about reminding you that, yeah, sometimes life's a bitch, but you're not alone. There's people around you that care about you, and we're all in this together. And that's what this song's about.